was put advertisements in the books that he published. And most of those advertisements were for snake oil that actually hurt people. So,
Turn on your microphone because we're live.
We're just coming.
Oh, we were talking
Hmm.
anyway,
Yeah. Okay. So welcome to the Lovecraft eZine live podcast. We're going to talk about Rick Lay for a little bit, Joe Pulver, NecronomiCON, what we've been doing here. So welcome, you guys. Alan, why don't you show them your throne in there?
Okay, well this, if we get to, just going to introduce the Rick portion. This is an idea that Mike Davis had. He reached out, he kind of solicited artists, and I was just sketching up some ideas, and he wanted me to run with it, and it was Joe Pulver welcoming Rick to Carcosa.
Yeah.
And so we did this. Mike's got the original in black and white, then we did a color version, and I think Mike has some plans for the prints that we're making from it.
Yeah, I'm gonna add a merch store to the Patreon for those of you who are patrons, and a merch store to the YouTube channel, which if you're not here, you're watching it on the YouTube channel right now. So we'll sell a couple different sizes, just, and the proceeds, if you buy one at our table here at NecronomiCON, it's $10, and all the proceeds go to the Michael J. Fox Parkinson's Foundation, and most of the proceeds will probably go to the foundation as well for the online, when we do put it online after a while. So I think Rick's family would like that a lot. So does everybody here, are you from, you know who Joe Pulver was and Rick Lay was? If you don't raise your hand, we'll spend a minute or two on them. Okay, so Joe Pulver was an editor and a writer and anthologist, and he wrote all kinds and edited all kinds of weird fiction. The Caligari anthology, for example, is fantastic. And but his big thing was King in Yellow, Carcosa, the yellow sign, that mythos. He really loved it, and he was you could get him. He could get very heated explaining that the Carcosa mythos, I guess you'd call it, and the Cthulhu mythos do not overlap. So, but that's a story for another day. But
that's a story for today.
all right, go ahead.
Thesis.
So, Lovecraft reads Chambers, loves Chambers, names drops Carcosa and the King in Yellow, mostly in The Whisper in Darkness, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Derleth runs with it, adds more stuff, and then Lynn Carter actually fully completes the King in Yellow and has stored together in his sonnet cycle, Dreams from R'lyeh. Since then, we've run with that. It evolves through even True Detective. By the way, the King in Yellow did not have horns until True Detective. Now every artist that draws the King in Yellow has added horns. So what you're seeing here is like the actual, we can trace the development of the image of the King in Yellow across almost 150 years, and how it's changed over the course of other writers using it. Joe was very, very adamant that the King in Yellow was not part of the Cthulhu mythos, that it had been hijacked, and he wanted to bring it back toward a more pure form. He cited a very, very small group of writers: Robert W. Chambers, the originator, Bierce, who precedes Chambers by actually using the words Carcosa, Carl Edward Wagner, who does some really beautiful, weird threading stories that are oddly linked to the Rocky Horror Picture Show through names, and then himself. But then, like, there's an explosion of King in Yellow mythos stories. Some great anthologies out there that are strictly King in Yellow stories.
Yeah, I was gonna say, my mind's blanking, but he put out at least 2 King in Yellow slash Carcosa
Casilda's
mythos.
Song.
Casilda's Song.
So Casilda's Song, the importance of that was Joe was trying to include everybody who never was represented before. This is all King in Yellow stories by women. So that's, and it was gorgeous cover art, really great stories. So that's one thing he was very proud of, was that anthology.
Yeah.
The story that they're mentioning by Carl Edward Wagner, if you want to read it, is The River of Nights Dreaming. And it's beautiful. It's been anthologized several times.
Joe could not say enough about that story. He loved that short story. What was the other anthology he did?
I don't know, but what I was going to say next was, like,
Yeah.
so Joe and I talked, and when I was approached to do an anthology called The Chromatic Court, that's the absolute opposite of Joe's thesis. My thesis is that the King in Yellow was not the only Lovecraftian monster that had a title and a color. So I had accidentally created, I don't know how, I never even thought about it that much, but I gave Cthulhu the title The Sepia Prince, which is kind of play on words because it's Prince, but it's also Prints. They're both kind of fun to play with. I wrote that story, and then I was like, oh yeah, like we could have the Duke of Rust, and like all these other things. And so we put out an anthology, and Joe actually broke his rule and contributed a story to that anthology. And what was the other? Never mind. There was a bunch of contributions. So yeah, Joe was very clear that he wanted to keep those two things separate.
I gather there's about 20 different anthologies now with King in Yellow stories. Some of them are quite rare to pick up. What I can do is, when I have some time, I'm mostly active on Facebook. I can put it on the Facebook main eZine page, the current list of anthologies featuring King in Yellow stories. So if you want to get your own library going, we can do that.
Yeah, after you do that, sometime this week or whenever you get a chance to, I'll copy that to the show notes for anyone watching this later. So, thanks. Yeah.
And they're not always serious. Like, there's one short story that I absolutely love, but it's tongue in cheek. It's called The King, in Yellow. It's Elvis.
That is by Brian Keene.
Yes.
That's not really been anthologized in any of the King in Yellow anthologies, and it is The King, in yellow, all cap letters, because yellow is the name of the play. But it is really well worth a read.
Oh, so if you're familiar, obviously, with the Cthulhu mythos, but not so much the Carcosa mythos, you'd be probably just as interested to read these anthologies and stories. And if you want, you don't have to, but if you want, it's always good to start with Robert Levy Chambers.
Yeah.
Those 4 stories are The Yellow Sign, what are the other
The
3?
Repair of Reputations.
Yeah,
The Court of the Dragon, and it was The King in Yellow, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so they could play with them. Yeah.
So that collection is titled The King in Yellow.
Yeah, there's actually a couple more stories in there that most people don't think of as part of the King in Yellow
Okay.
overview,
Yeah.
but they're actually kind of secretly tied in through like location and characters.
Which 2 you remember off the top of your head?
The Rue du Asile, I think, is one of them, something like that, or the Rue of the Dragon, the Spirit of the Dragon, something like that. But
You know, you can actually, I have looked up, you can see photographs of the Court of the Dragon in Paris. It was a real place.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. So, Joe was not just all of what I said a few minutes ago, but he was also a regular contributor to this podcast. It's typically every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Or you can watch it later.
Speaking of podcasts, we give away prizes, and the
Yeah.
prize for this show is a book called Black Feathers. It's an anthology edited by Ellen Datlow. It's all bird-themed horror. If you want to try to win this prize, you send an email to ezineprizes, all one word, ezineprizes@gmail.com. And you just put feathers in the subject heading. Usually it takes about 8 weeks, but we'll draw a winner, and then I just mail the book to whoever's name we draw. So if you're interested in, if you want to say, this is for the birds, you can still enter and win this book.
Another random way to do it, since, you know, if you want to give it to the live audience, is do like a wedding, just, you know, turn around and toss the book backwards.
Why don't we do it as blood sport? Survivor.
All right, so if you want the stories are the Repairer of Reputations, the Mask, In the Court of the Dragon, the Yellow Sign, the Damsel of this, Prophet's Paradise, the Street of the Four Winds, the Street of the First Shell, the Street of Our Lady of the Fields, and Rue Barré, which is also a street. So, you know, those are it's the first four that are generally considered the King Yellow stories, but the other ones are tied in.
Yeah, before we get off this, I should say that this kind of subgenre has been around for a while of, you know, how do I want to describe this, of a forgotten film or a secret film, play, whatever. In Robert W. Chambers, it's a play, because it was written a long time ago, but there's a lot of fiction, like Paul Tremblay's newest book, Horror Movie, is an example. It's not really Cthulhu mythos, but it's, Carcosa mythos, but it's adjacent in that respect. That kind of story. Gemma Files' experimental film is an excellent example as well.
That's brilliant, if you've not read it.
Yeah.
Super creepy.
I really love that subgenre. So we talked about this a while back on the podcast, and we had quite a list of stories like this, but I didn't even know we were going to talk about this today, so my mind is blank. But they're somewhat easy to find. Yeah, Joe was a regular on the podcast, and so we miss him, and you know, you do little tricks when you really miss someone you care about, and you know, in my mind, I think of Joe in Carcosa, and so then our other friend Rick Lay passed away at the end of April, and he was a regular on the podcast, and so I just kind of had this idea of Joe welcoming Rick to Carcosa, so, and Alan did a great job. Anyone out there listening who's an artist who wants to do a second version, I would be happy to see it, so. Yeah.
I would make a few suggestions if you want to know or know more about Joe. There's several anthologies which were incredibly unique. It's The Madness of Caligari is one about stories based on Caligari. He had one, The Grimscribe's Puppets, which were stories based on the writings of Thomas Ligotti, and the third one.
Book of Leaves?
Leaves of a Necronomicon.
Leaves of Necronomicon.
Yeah, there was a third anthology I was thinking of, and they just spaced it.
Old age will do that.
Yeah. But also, Hippocampus Press has a large number of his titles still in print. Probably the best way to get them. And you can also just maybe follow Kat Pulver on Facebook. He loved her to bits, and she has issues with her health and her ability to work, so sometimes she'll have fundraisers. And you can think of it as supporting Joe because she's also trying to get some of his unpublished work into print. It might help her do that. Just
Katrin Pulver, Katrin Pulver, so, yeah. And, you know, you can just always do the old fashioned if you want to get to know Joe more. If he was writing, just go to Amazon and type in Joseph S. Pulver Sr. The other way is I'm working, and this just takes time, because I have to go through them, working on a playlist for this channel, the best of Joe Pulver on the podcast, but that's gonna take me a little while. I started on it a couple of years ago and I'm still working through it. So anyway, there was a panel yesterday morning talking about Joe, and not all of us got to attend, so I just wanted to add a few more words for those of you who didn't know him. His very first book, and then we'll go on to the next subject, his very first book is called Nightmare's Disciple, modern mythos book before a lot of modern mythos, really, Pete, wouldn't you say?
Yes, yeah.
And then after that, it was like he was finding his voice, and his voice totally changed. He became he's kind of a poetic prose writer in a sense. So.
Yeah. My Nightmare's Disciple is essentially one of the first modern mythos novels. It's the first, one of the few people I've seen reject setting your stories in the 20s, 30s, and move the mythos further into modern age. Chaosium publishes it in the 80s. I read it, I fall in love with it. Between that book and Cody Goodfellow's work, it convinces me that the mythos is moving into the future, and it helps inspire me in my writing. When I finally meet Joe Pulver, he has completely moved on from the Cthulhu mythos. He's deeply embedded into Robert W. Chambers, doesn't want to talk about the mythos anymore, wants to move on into more Chambers, more beat poetry. If you ever get a chance to look so you can see, Joe took lots of pictures because we have video of him with lots of stuff. He's usually in the background, it's all toys. He loved Marvel comics. But occasionally you would see him in his book room, and the amount of weird poetry, and not like Anne K. Schrader poetry, like this is highfalutin stuff that was published around the world. He just had a massive library of poetry, French, Italian, British. He loved poetry, and it really influenced his work, and you can see that in his writing. And if you look at his novels and his short stories, they'll often end, and at the bottom of that last page, there'll be a little notation about what music he was listening to, what books he was reading,
Right.
what formed the inspiration for this section of the book.
Yeah, I don't know any other writers who really did that.
No.
Short stories, novels, whatever.
He always seemed to reference it. Like, I think it's the Orphan Palace, where Dr. Sachs is actually a minor character, and that's from what, Kerouac? Something like that. So yeah, he wanted you to know what he was being influenced by.
Before we move on, he did another anthology, not related, but really, really cool. The Hippocampus published it, I think, The Madness of Dr. Caligari. I think it was Hippocampus. Might have been Fido, no, I don't think it was Fido and Bremer. But, check that out, especially if you love that film. So, anyway, Rick, what can we say about Rick? One of the smartest and nicest guys I ever met.
I would say we only saw the barest slice of him.
Yeah.
Even though he loved being on the podcast and he was our go-to guy for facts, he loved the pulp era. Pulp magazines, pulp heroes, The Shadow Men, Doc Savage, Tarzan, he had a huge footprint in that fandom. And we just got to see the barest slice of it. He received a major award near the end of his life, a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Pulp Fiction fandom. He was very proud of that.
Actually, 2 years ago this month, yeah.
So it's funny, we all thought of him as being so expert in what we were doing, but we were just a side interest almost.
I got a chance to go through his library while he was still alive and look at it. And one of the things that amazed me was particularly for like the Doc Savage books, he had like original printings of Doc Savage books. And then he had like the complete run of the Bantam editions from the 60s. And then there were reprint editions of facsimile reprints of the pulp editions with different cover art. And then there were, let's do an annotated version of it. So he had like, I think 6 different versions of the same book, just in different states. And he would do that with Doc Savage and The Shadow. He was interested not just in the story, but also the art and the commentary, and what, if like some of the books were just bought for introductions. Like, I want those introductions.
He wrote a book about The Shadow. Speaking of The Shadow, I've got it and I'm blanking on
It's
the
a
title.
Shadow Chronology.
Shadow Chronology,
Yeah.
right.
Actually, he published it twice because he updated the text.
Yeah, it's on Kindle too, which is probably the
Man
most,
in Bronze
Yep,
chronology.
yep, he did Doc Savage one too.
yeah.
Now I say all this in because he was doing it on purpose, but when I was looking through his book collection, I found 3 copies of the same book. So, maybe he just never could remember what he owned, but honestly, I doubt that, because Matt and I both agree that he sort of had this eidetic memory.
Yeah.
Once he read something, he could never forget it. And more importantly, I think he was amazing at making the connections between one book or one story and another story.
He loved that, in fact.
What got me about him was like, I have all these books, but he actually had read all of his books. So if you want to look it up, it's the Munsey Award. There's a very nice photo of him at his award if you look it up.
And he was very proud of that, yeah.
There's probably really no end to the things he was interested in. I remember staying on one of your the Patreon chats really late, and he was, we talked with Ben Handelman for an hour about Doctor Who. He knew Marvel. He was a Marvel guy. He knew Marvel comics to that same level, and even once in history, when he found out that I was a history teacher and was focused on the Crusades, he had questions for me that, were, what was your history degree in? He was a computer guy.
He earned his name Wikipedia.
Yeah, someone said, after he died, someone wrote that a library burned down, which is true, in addition to being such a great guy, was very true. So, yeah, I don't know why he had 3 copies of the same book with the memory that he had, but I guess because he wanted 3 copies of the same book.
Honestly, he may have had a great memory for facts and what he read, but maybe not for other things. Like I can tell you every bookstore I've ever been to, what I bought there, and I can go to my shelf and I pull out a book and tell you where I bought it, what I paid for it, and if that bookstore is in existence. I can't tell you the birthdays of my kids.
Yeah, I've done that a few times with bought books.
You may need to edit that out.
No.
It's
I have,
live, it's too late.
Yeah, I've bought the same book more than once. Like 6 months ago, I saw a Batman anthology from the 80s, and I was like, oh, that looks really interesting. I thought, I don't know why I've never come across this. No Kindle version, so I ordered a used copy and waited for it to arrive kind of impatiently, and then realized that it was on my DC Comics bookshelf. So now I have 2 copies in case I want to read it twice. So anyway, we just wanted to touch on Rick Lay too, for those of you who knew him and didn't know him. When I think of The Shadow, which I'm interested in, I remember him telling me at least 3 times that Lamont Cranston was not The Shadow's real name, and then he'd go on about it. It's just amazing what he could keep in his head. So, anything else you want to say about Rick before we move on?
I would say there's a Leslie Nielsen movie from the 60s, I think, called Dark Intruder. It's about an hour long. It's a really Lovecraftian themed movie. Well, if you want to catch all the illusions, just look up Dark Intruder, Rick Lay, and he wrote an article drawing every single inference that they even implied. So it's like your own annotations for the movie.
Yeah, he sent that to me and wanted to know if I wanted to publish it, and I'm like, yeah. So it's on the Lovecraft eZine website. Anything else about Rick? you know, that was a few months ago, and we really missed him on it, so we wanted to talk about him at the first opportunity. Maybe talk a little bit about NecronomiCON, what everyone's been up to, and what you're looking forward to for the rest of the convention, and then wrap up. Matt, you want to start?
So when I come to these things, I generally don't go to panels unless I got nothing else going. Because I want to go do things like that they're not going to be repeated. So for example, tonight at 7:30, there's a live performance by the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society of their latest Dark Adventures video theater play. That's over at the Graduate. Starting at 9:30 is a performance of The Horla by Guy de Maupassant with original music.
I didn't know that. I love that story.
So those are some of the things that I like. I like going to the dealer's room. Not even necessarily to buy things, although I do, but just to see everybody having a good time, and then just, you can chat and talk to artists. Gage Prentice was down there. Jason McKittrick was down there, right? So you can just go.
Santiago Caruso
Yeah,
is right across from our table, and he's got some amazing stuff.
I got a book signed by Santiago Caruso. You know, he was the artist that was honored, I think, back in 2019. He's from Argentina. He does amazing work. So you get to, you can of course, like, just, if you're unabashed, you can just go to the table, oh, this is cool, and then not buy anything. But it's a chance for you to meet authors like Derek Hussey is down at the Hippocampus table. The guy has been really supportive of publishing in the Lovecraftian arena. He's the guy who's created a scholarship for someone to do original Lovecraft research every summer. So we're just sit in the lobby and see who walks by, strike up a conversation. That's really why we're here, not to just go to panel after panel. That's too much like a professional meeting.
What I want to know is, what is this?
Oh, I was at a really great panel.
You said you would go.
It was actually not a panel, I forget the guy's name. He did a presentation on grimoires in cinema and showed, like, this is how they did the NecronomiCON and Evil Dead, and here's the one that was in The Night of the Demon, and he'd ask little trivia questions, so I won an octopus. But that was really fun. Also, if you haven't done it, there are probably still spots on the walking tours where you can go around and see Lovecraftian sites with a guide, and they just explain what happened, what they used this particular house for. You get to see the city of Providence without just sitting in a chair in a room all day.
Did you say the Horla thing was tonight?
Yeah, it's about 9:30 to 11 over in the second floor of the Graduate, right after the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Or go, heck, you don't want to do that? Go out to Waterfire tonight. Go look at all the lit braziers, and maybe you'll hear some live music and buy a hot dog. Who knows?
The hot dog is why we're all here. Pete, what panels have you been on, and what else do you end up doing?
Wow. I did the Joe Culver panel yesterday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I met with my publisher. I met with a publisher. I met with a publisher. I met with this is my first panel today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sober. I did trivia. We did trivia last night. We did bar trivia last night. Some of you were there. Some of you were not. I was very disappointed.
He does.
I do bar
trivia
trivia
every year.
Yeah. This is my it's 5th time doing it, I think.
Well, what kind of questions did you have last night?
All right. So the first question is Talia Shire, also known as Talia Coppola,
The Dunwich Horror.
was in the Dunwich Horror.
She played a nurse.
Yeah, she played a nurse. Okay. All right.
Were you there?
That wasn't like you know everything.
Decades late. Okay, so that's the first question. Is like who is what? Yeah, she plays a nurse in the Dunwich Horror, but she's best known for playing Rocky's wife. Decades later, her nephew also appears in a Lovecraft adaptation in a film of a Lovecraft story. Name the actor and the movie.
I was there, so I can't answer.
Anybody
You were
know?
there, you can't answer.
Nicholas,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah.
Nicholas Cage, Color Out of Space?
Yes.
Wow.
Nicholas Cage is Talia
Nice.
Coppola's nephew.
Hey, before you go on, when the NecronomiCON, was it 2019 that Rick was here? Did he go to your trivia?
No, he did
Justin
not.
Woodman won
No.
the trivia like 3 times running.
Right.
'Cause I was gonna say, if Rick had gone to the trivia, if he'd not gone.
No, because Rick didn't drink.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay, go on.
Because, you know, his disease didn't allow
Right.
it. So yeah, we did that. What else am I'm promoting the hell, I've got 2-3 books out right now, so I gotta promote the hell out of them. And so I'm reading from this one this afternoon. This is my kid's book. The elevator pitch is Red Dawn meets Children of the Damned as a golden book. So it's a kid's book if, you know, your kids are the Manson family. I'm promoting this. My collection, The Cthulhu Heresy and Other Lovecraftian Sins, is out from Weird House. It's sold out of the limited edition. It's sold out of the signed limited edition. There are a couple copies left at the table. Their table, not mine. I don't even have a copy yet. I might have to get a reprint at this point.
But by the way, before you go on, if for those who are watching now or later, hopefully the internet isn't choppy on your end, but if we're just doing the best we can. So the building kind of hampers the internet signal sometimes.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, go on.
So I'm doing the reading this afternoon. This evening, I'm doing the Pugmire panel.
Oh, yeah.
And then tomorrow, Matt, we're doing the Arkhamites, this 1970s Arkhamites, who wrote Lovecraftian fiction in the 70s and 80s.
I'm hoping they record that.
They didn't
Bookfire.
say that,
Yeah.
they said the 70s.
Okay, well, whatever.
I've gotten so much heartburn from
And that's what I'm doing. I'm drinking a lot.
So we do have a table in the dealer's room. I had some Larry Barron books. Those are gone. Kelly Young, his book, The Secret Language of Spiders, there are about 22 signed copies left down there. And it's a really great book, and it's got interior art as well. So yeah, check that out. And then Bridget's got some really cool stuff.
Well, speaking of drinking, Alan, what are you doing?
Well, wait,
Wait,
you
but-
cut off Bridget.
Yeah, you cut off
I was
Bridget.
literally about to talk.
Sorry.
I'll take care of it.
Nobody wants to hear about my stuff, apparently. No, I've got
No,
some
we
art
do.
and some stuff down there, and promoting the Weird Library podcast. We've got 2 episodes up already. The first one is a story by Emma Gibbon, and then the second story is one of Laird Barron's short stories. I got a 3rd episode coming out in a week or so, so please follow the Weird Library podcast. Got some really cool stuff already lined up, and it's been fun just kind of chatting with different authors and stuff, lining up stories.
So, wait, you're
And-
going too fast.
What?
So, didn't you compose original music
I was
for the?
getting to that. Yes, I designed the logo and I composed music for it. I have also done some of the narration. There'll be some guest narrators, of course, as well. And I've also done some art just for each episode. So there's art episodes. Hope you all give it a listen and more episodes to come. Lots of good stuff. But it's basically going for short stories that are like a night gallery, tales of the dark side, not necessarily mythos, but just kind of a spooky, eerie vibe. And then, of course, when you can't listen in the dark.
Well, tell us about the art that you have for sale.
And the music boxes.
Yeah, I do have some art down there for sale, some creepy music boxes, and I still have I like to do 3D textural art that's kind of abstract. So got some of that stuff down there, and come check it out. Say hi.
Someone bought your NecronomiCON.
I know. I was like,
That's great.
nope, it's gone.
I feel like Joe Pesci and what's that? My Cousin Vinny, and she's kind of cute too, right?
Oh my god.
Oh my God.
Well, you know, gotta represent.
Sure you can't edit out bits?
Not on mine. No.
Look, you guys are lucky I'm wearing pants.
Yes, you're right.
Oh my gosh.
That's true.
And you're not in bed.
And I'm not in bed.
That's true. But but if you need a t-shirt, we have t-shirts down there. So at least you'll have a t-shirt on.
Yeah, you're actually wearing a WXXT t-shirt, Matthew Bartlett.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bartlett comes into the coffee shop. Where'd you get that, Pete?
I've had this conversation with him before. He gives me help. So there was a there was a guy who made t-shirts, Lovecraftian t-shirts, and I was like, I really like your work, but I don't wear t-shirts. I like wearing work shirts. And he's like, okay, well, you know, I don't have the equipment to make a work shirt. It would cost me a little money to get it set up like that. And he said, well, what would it cost? It's like $75. And I'm like, I'll send you $75. I just want a WXXT t-shirt or the work shirt. And
Is
he's like,
that
yeah,
what
I
that
can
is,
do
a work shirt?
Yeah, it's a work shirt.
Okay,
Or a bowling shirt or whatever, you know.
that's where I was going, yeah.
Anyway, so like it's like a one-off. I guess I should have talked to Matt Bartlett about
No, he doesn't care. He just likes giving
Free
shit about it.
advertising. That's awesome.
So getting back to drinking, what were you up to, Alan?
Yes, I'd like to thank the Trinity Brew House for sponsoring my appearance here. This is my second NecronomiCON, and I mean, you can't do everything, but I will say it's a small enough convention. I'm used to Dragon Con.
Oh, yeah. No, that's
Atlanta.
like, that's,
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do a panel, you get in line for that panel, and that's your whole day.
yeah.
But NecronomiCon, I did a game this morning. I've watched a panel. I'm on a panel. You have a chance to get a little bit of everything
It's a
done.
different vibe.
Yeah, I went to Dragon Con once. The line to get to the line to see Harlan Ellison was 3 hours long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw Frank Miller at Dragon Con. That was my day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've got his autograph.
just saw
I've got his autograph on Batman Year One.
I just saw Frank like a couple months ago, and it was like I ducked in. But
Oh,
all
I
right,
just saw Frank.
mhm. I
I'm
got a little
sorry.
taste of that when I went, my wife and I and my son went to Texas Frightmare. I've never been to a convention that big.
Yeah, it's
And there were
overwhelming.
quite the lines.
Yeah,
And the dealer's room was like 4 of the dealer's rooms here at least.
You pick like one big thing to go to,
Yeah.
and then I just walk by the celebrity alley and be like, there he is, there she is, and that's good. Check.
Like a selfie from 100 feet away.
the guy who
Yes.
played Childs in The Thing, he was there at the con I was at. I wanted to get his signature. Unfortunately, he's some character in Halo. The line is just, it never stopped being 2 hours deep. The whole weekend I was there, it was 2 hours deep the whole time. And
Probably
they're-
worst job to have.
they're getting bobbleheads signed of Master Sergeant. So I guess he voiced Master Sergeant for something. And it's just like, damn. You know, I want my copy of The Thing signed, but I can't it's like I'd already sacrificed 4 hours for Susan Sarandon, which, you know, okay, you know, I'm a little geeky,
You gotta
but
pick, yeah.
you know, whatever. And yeah, don't I may be a pro, but that doesn't get you anything really when you're like looking at celebrities.
Plus, I think we've been doing this signature thing wrong because you said Susan Sarandon charged $75 for signature.
No, $175.
$175?
Yeah.
Wow.
It depends on their manager. Yeah.
I would have signed her name for free.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, and so this was her first signing. She'd never done a signing before, and her whole booth was draped. So you could not see her. You could not take pictures. You walked in. She signed. She said hello. She signed your stuff, and you left.
Did she read your fortune?
No, but her handler made it very, very clear that, you know, there were consequences if you broke the rules.
Wow, that's
It
crazy.
was terrible. Meanwhile, her ex-husband is like 5 booths down, and like nobody's getting a signature.
Aw.
But you know, whatever.
I don't usually pay for photo ops, but I did pay for one for John Carpenter.
Yeah?
That was really awesome.
Well, what
Yeah.
con was that?
That one was Texas Frightmare Weekend a couple of years ago. Yeah, totally worth it. That was
So not to trump you, but I
But he's going to.
but I'm going to. So I went to see everybody knows that like I buy weird shit and like I have
They
massive
do now.
collection. They do. I buy weird shit. I go, like, if there's a flea market, I go through every box. If there's a estate sale, I'm there, like, top to bottom. I found a complete set of the Night of the Living Dead trading cards. And I took them I got in line to see George Romero, and like, what do you want signed? And it's like, I just want a photo signed, but I don't know what to do with these. And they're like, oh my God, we've never seen these before. Like, we knew they existed, we haven't seen copies. So they're like, we'll take those, and they just start loading me up with stuff. And it was like, all of a sudden I got like 10 George Romero signatures. But you know, and I kind of do this, like, I go to artists at comic books, and it's just like, I need 2 signatures, here's 20 books that, you know, I don't need, and I paid $1 for.
Did you bring those George Romero cards, or are you selling this?
No, they took those Romero cards.
Oh, when you say took, you mean
They took them, and then they
Okay.
gave me like prints with Romero's signature. But yeah, it's a really weird thing that I do, and I don't know, but it works.
But he's got some really cool stuff at the table downstairs, so just
Yeah.
random
Yeah,
things that you found.
that's true.
But yeah, whenever you know, like, he knows too, like, his repeat customers for books, so like what we all like, and then it's like, God damn it, Pete, now I gotta send you more money.
Oh yeah, there's nothing like so Bridget buys a lot of stuff, and I'm not going to tell you what she buys because, you know, like, you know, patient-client privilege. But Mike is her
That was all
husband,
kinds of wrong.
and like, I have to make sure that Mike doesn't know that I'm like feeding Bridget's addiction.
They're like, just send it in a black box.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
But there are, like, you know, like, even this morning I sold a book to somebody, and it's like, you have to explain to my wife why I spent $200 in your booth. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that, but you'll have to explain to my wife why you didn't. But yeah, it's an addiction, and it's bad, but, you know, we have fun.
No, it's a gift. You find cool stuff, but yeah.
Anytime my wife looks at me, she shakes her head. It's like, it could be worse. It could be drugs. You know. So anyway.
So I think probably gonna wrap up. Does anyone have any comments or questions before we go?
Yeah, we're hardly ever live. Ask us questions.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, or guy in the back, and then you.
Whatever happened to Rick's library?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
It's a sad question.
We're still trying to answer that question. I've got, Pete, like he said, he was at Rick's house a couple years ago, saw his library. Rick has an incredible amount of books. We don't know how interested his family is in, you know, unloading it or just unloading it, if you know what I mean.
I think the problem is again, we only had the barest slice of Rick's life. He was a successful software developer, and he had a very loving family.
Yeah.
And they're
Very.
crushed. So just looking at this vivid memory of him, they just can't address it right now. So it's, as far as we know, still extant and untouched. We just hope it finds a good home somewhere, because
Well, I talked about this with Pete yesterday, actually, and what I said was I can text Allison, his daughter, very lovely, nice person, and Pete's like, let me think about it, and so, well, we may get a bit of it, we're not sure yet.
you know, Willem Pugmire's library all got auctioned or sold by S.T. Joshi, and whatever proceeds there were used to fund Lovecraft research at the John Hay Library. So we don't know if they're gonna wanna have some kind of specific disposition of his library to try to keep its holes, put it somewhere, we just don't know.
To put it into perspective, I was there for about 6 hours. I took thousands of photographs of shelves, and I spent a couple months going through those photographs. I have 3 legal pads of books, like one or two books per line.
Wow.
Just an amazing collection, and some real original pulps that I can't find other copies of. So it's a magnificent collection.
Those kind of nice, but the paper's gonna be old.
Yeah, to be honest with you, some of that stuff was sealed. You know, like, so he bought it, he read it, and then he sealed it because he knew it was falling apart. Other stuff, I think he has, you know, the really, really thick volumes from Marvel Comics, like Marvel Masterworks, but before they were done on good paper, they were like these cheap. He had hundreds of those just stacked up in a room and where the shelves had fallen. And the weight of the books had broken the shelves, but nobody could get in there to clean it up. So it all exists it's there, it's probably okay, but somebody has to get in there and deal with it. The other thing was that this is what I saw on the shelves, but what his wife says, she takes me out to the garage, and the whole garage is full of Xerox boxes, stacked higher than me, so over 6 feet tall, and that's like stuff that he's not interested in right now. And I'm like, it's like she's like, if you have a truck, you can take this right now. I'm like, I came here on a train, and we're flying to Philadelphia tomorrow. It's like, I can't deal with anything right now. But yeah, it's a magnificent collection. We've only brushed the top of it. I would really like to know where it ends up, and just so that it ends up safe.
What was your question?
So it's actually not a question.
Okay.
I own a brick and mortar retail comic and gaming store in Pittsburgh,
Cool.
Pennsylvania.
Congratulations.
And from what you guys have told me about these two gentlemen, I am so sorry that I didn't get a chance to meet them. I'd like to add a couple things to your pool to auction off to your viewers. I'd love to add some pulp magazines and a 1963 Marvel Omnibus to your pool for your fans.
Wow,
If you send me the winners' names, I'll give you my information. I'd be more than happy to ship those out.
Why don't
What
you
winner
do that?
name is,
Well, why don't you just contact Mike Davis through Facebook, and we
or email?
Okay.
we could just talk about it.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to do it, so I'm never gonna remember any of this the minute I walk out the door.
What we could do is, if you want, it's up to you, it's really generous of you. We could also, however many things you want to give away, like next Sunday when we do an episode, we could make a prize for that Sunday from you, and
That
the
sounds
next Sunday another
fantastic.
prize. from
What's the
you.
name of your store again?
It is K&J Comics and Games in Westview, Pennsylvania.
K&J Comics and Games.
Yep, we're really small, we're really new, we're only 2 years old, and getting into this wide, wonderful world of horror and fiction and meeting all these people is amazing. So thank you so much for taking the time to introduce us to your friends.
Well, thank you. Do you have a website?
Just look us up under K&JComics.com.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Remember, there is a prize, so send an email to easyandprizes@gmail.com. Put feathers in the subject heading. We do a random drawing for a winner. It takes roughly 8 weeks. You could win this anthology from Ellen Datlow.
With feathers, not feather brand. Anybody else before we go? Thanks for putting up with us for, 45 minutes, and lovely to meet all you guys. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, you can just